Welcome back to another episode of Over Underrated. It is your co-host Fran, and today we are chatting with our guest Paula Wiseman from the Divine Comedians podcast, and we've decided to talk about Blue-Eyed Soul, I believe. Well, Rod Stewart and Robert Palmer. Paula made a playlist for the 5 songs she thinks are going to persuade you to think that Robert Palmer is underrated, and I chose 5 songs to discuss if Rod Stewart is overrated. So, let's chat.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over underrated?
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
It's another episode of Over Underrated with Fran and Babs. Fran, how are we doing today?
I'm enjoying another hot, humid day in the UK. But how are you doing,
I'm
Babs?
good. I'm just back from a wonderful holiday and wedding in Canada. So that's the high. The low is that my computer decided to pack in after a mere 2 years. Literally the second I came back from holiday and started to work again. So I am on a borrowed laptop. Thank you, Catherine. But thankfully there is good music.
There is
on the way. So what I've been listening to this week, I have become obsessed with the Yellow Jackets theme tune. Have you watched Yellow Jackets yet?
No, you told me to watch it. And
Watch it.
As soon as I can stand being back in my lounge for a long period of time, I will catch up with all the TV I've missed. But but in UK it's Paramount Plus, so I might have to, get some sneaky videos of it from somewhere
I will
else.
not tell you how I found it. Because I'm not sure where it is in Belgium. But yeah, I've been listening to that, and I've been really, really enjoying the new song by Loyal Kana, Hate. It has some really slick production and very good beats. It sounds quite different to his old stuff, I think, which is a bit kind of more mellow. This has a bit of an edge to it. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's very good.
I have not heard of that at all. So we heard about the Mercury Prize nominations, didn't we?
We did, and so many artists that we like are nominated, right, Fran?
Yes, we have our fingers on the button, guys. Even at the age of in the late mid-30s and early 40s.
We got it, and so I knew 11 of the 12. I'd heard of 11 of the 12. Fran, you said you knew 8. That's not bad.
Not bad. Come
on. But yeah, so Nova Twins, Self Esteem, Wet Leg, and Little Sims are all nominated, and they were all artists that we talk about in our Best of 2020 and Best of 21.
You heard it here first, obviously, guys.
Indeed.
Obviously.
But yeah, have you been listening to any other music apart from Mercury Prize nominees, Fran?
So I went to a festival, Truck Fest in Oxford. Nothing to do with cars or anything to do with lorries or transport. It is an indie rock music festival, and I discovered a band called The Magic Gang, who I've kind of always heard the name of, but never really dived in. And I should have, because they're based in Dorset. So being from Dorset, I should kind of give them a try. And yeah, they kind of blew me away. I was like, oh, wow, why have I not bothered with this band before?
What kind of music is it? Because it sounds, I'd say, psychedelic-y.
Well, I guess the Magic Band was Captain Beefheart back. So I guess they maybe started from there. But you would call it university indie? Is that a genre? Like Alt J?
Not one I'd heard of before, but so like Glass Animals,
Bombay Bottle Club,
Okay.
The kids who stayed at home and researched their A-levels. It's got that sort of vibe. No eyeliner, not sexy, but that's a lot of good rhythms, guys.
Okay, so it could go either way for me, I think, from that description.
And free vocalists. I'm a fan of band of free vocalists, a bit like Gomez, etc. So I was blown away, and I got to see Kasabian, Sans, Tom, and it was brilliant.
Yes. Glad to hear it.
Yeah,
glad to hear it. Serge was a good frontman.
Yep, Kasabian has still got it, even without Tom.
Great. You heard it here first. But we are not alone, are we, Fran?
We are not
discussions
alone.
Today.
We have a guest, because we love a guest. And today we have the host of the Divine Comedians podcast, Paula Wiseman. Hello, Paula.
Hi, Fran. How are you?
Still hot. How are you in Ireland today?
I am. I'm in Dublin. I'm in North Dublin. It's not. It's a bit overcast. It's semi-warm. It's about 17 degrees, which is about manageable.
It's doable.
It's not too bad in the grand scheme of things.
How long have you been based in Dublin?
20 years in November.
Goodness.
So yeah, it's a long old time, but it's so easy now to. I'm from Sussex originally, and I can, flying backwards and forwards is so easy now. It's an hour each way, so it's very handy.
What was there any reason for you to travel to Ireland in the first place, or was it music or work or?
I don't know. There was probably a boy involved.
The Irish accent is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
it really is. You know,
I was going to
It
ask,
has
like,
to
you
be
don't
heard
seem
to
to
be
have an
believed.
Irish tinge in your accent. You've remained solidly English. You've not
Oh,
let them
no.
get to you.
No, I go home and top it up quite regularly.
There was a
people say, "Oh, you haven't lost your accent," and you're like, "Well, how would I lose? How could you lose an accent?"
Oh, trust me. Well, okay, so I'm of Portuguese origin.
Yeah.
So I mean, I sound British, but the second I go somewhere else, so I've just been in Canada for a week and a half. I started saying pants. I started softening my A's because it's also kind of a question of being understood as well sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me it happens very quickly. It's quite scary.
I saw an Irish band, probably from Dublin, called Inhaler. Paula, do you know them?
Yeah, I think isn't that the son of Bono?
Yeah.
Bono's son is the lead singer.
I feel so sorry for him because he's never going to not be called the son of Bono, is he?
No, exactly.
and the fact that he's wearing a white vest with a kind of 1980s Bono mullet didn't help his cause either, to be fair.
I've heard of them, but what's their music like?
It's indie rock. I think that they've got the look, the sound, but they still need some songs. They had maybe 4 decent songs. So yeah, but I mean, he even sounds a bit like Bono. He's got the same sort of like yelp to him.
Well, Coco Somner sounds like Sting, and that I quite like some of her songs. So that's not always a bad thing.
No, and he's brave. I mean, he's not going to make as much money as his dad ever did in music. So good luck to him.
But moving away from Ireland back to Britain, what's our theme today, Fran?
Well, we're doing Blue-Eyed Soul, I believe we've decided.
British Blue-Eyed Soul.
British Blue-Eyed Soul. We have, as possibly overrated, Sir Rod Stewart. And as possibly underrated, we have Robert Palmer, which is Paula's pick. But first, we will discuss Mr. Stewart. So, Babs, tell me everything you know about Rod Stewart in 2 minutes.
Fuck, bloody hell. Yeah, I've written, I always forget that he's Scottish. I had completely forgotten about his daughter, Kimberly Stewart, who was quite a fixture in the kind of naughty's tabloids, and I went down a real Wikipedia rabbit hole yesterday because she has a kid with Benicio del Toro. Her brother Sean Stewart got arrested but had a reality TV show with Aaron Spelling's son anyway, so nothing to do with Rod Stewart, but I got very distracted as per. I feel like I saw him most recently in the carpool karaoke he did with A$AP Rocky and James Corden, obviously, because A$AP Rocky sampled A Broken Dream in his song Every Day. Apart from that, he's not someone I really think about or have particularly strong feelings about. Like, I felt coming in that he was one of those, like, yeah, I'm a sexy dude kind of people, a bit like Elvis, a bit like Jim Morrison, where you didn't have that many men being so open about their sexuality back in the day. I knew he was in the band called The Faces, but didn't really know when it was just Rod Stewart, when it was just The Faces. I enjoyed 1 or 2 of the hits and always wondered whether there was more than met the eye. But yeah, that's about it.
Rod Stewart, more than meets the eye. Sorry. If it's too young for Transformers, I do apologise for that reference. Paula, Rod Stewart. Any thoughts before we get into it? Have you seen him live? Have you owned any Rod Stewart songs?
No, I haven't, but I think he's just one of those, he's just one of those guys that everybody knows. You say Rod Stewart, every single person knows. Bit of leopard print, you think of Rod Stewart and his kind of mullety hair going on and that kind of stuff.
I read today it only takes him 2 minutes to get his hair. It's all hair drying and wax apparently, so I thought it'd be a lot longer, to be fair.
He should be doing TikToks of his hair and skin routine because he's doing really well, and I'm sure that people would listen.
and I mean, the fact that he can still fit into those tights and skinny trousers is pretty good going for a guy in his mid-70s.
Yeah, but would you want to look at that?
Well, I have looked at that with my own eyes.
I believe it.
I saw him at the Isle of Wight Festival 2017. And it was interesting because obviously he's a man in his retirement years, and he kept leaving the stage after every 2 songs. It's either downing some water or having some air. It was quite weird. So I've not seen that before. But yeah, like I said, Rod Stewart's the sort of person, he's just been in the charts since I was born. I guess in the UK, he kind of became like the mum's choice I didn't really know about the mod called Rod Stewart until a later date. So I guess in some way it'd be a bit like Liam McGallagher and then ending up doing disco and pop records and ballads, because the Faces were one of the coolest bands of the 60s. And at one point in the 70s, he was a solo artist and in the Faces at the same time, until he became too big basically, and had to leave the UK for tax reasons and move to America, and that became the end of the Faces.
Is that why?
That's literally why, yeah. Because
another one leaving for tax reasons.
I think he's saying he was getting 80% tax. So the Faces did a tour of America and he stayed, and that's the end of the Faces basically. So the first 3 albums he did at the same time as being with the Faces. I think he signed a solo deal before the Faces asked him to be the lead singer, and he couldn't get out of it, so he just thought he'd just do both. And most of the time it's kind of blurred lines, because Ronnie Wood would play all his solo stuff and on the Faces, and on Top of the Pops the Faces would be his backing band. So it was a bit weird.
Yeah, I was hoping you could tease this up for me, because I was very confused when it's the Faces, when it's not. So yeah, hopefully you can clarify in each song.
I think some of the Faces got a bit pissed off because some promoters would call a tour Rod Stewart and the Faces, even though I believe it's the bassist Ronnie Lang's band, so that wasn't great for them. But
he's bigger, isn't he? So
oh yeah,
understandable. So why did you pick Rod Stewart, Fran? I'm curious to.
So Paula wanted to do Mr. Palmer, and I thought Rod Stewart also similar. He's into soul, blues from the 70s, 80s. A lot of ladies enjoy the looks.
Ladies enjoy Rod Stewart instead of ladies love Cool J.
Looking back, pretty awful videos of both of them, and album covers. I think one of Robert's album covers is just a girl with her arse out for some bizarre reason.
I did look this up. You're gonna have to go.
Press a drop. Check out that cover.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Paula and Tina will be doing it on this next album. But and I thought, okay, I mean, the songs I chose on the playlist, I chose a mix of the critics' choice, the mod era, the early 70s albums, and then I chose the disco era and the MOR 90s era Rod Stewart to kind of show a rainbow of Rod, if that's the thing.
That sounds like a threat.
The rainbow
or a
of
bad
Rod.
Sexual position.
I mean,
an LGBTQ plus.
I mean,
sexual position.
I'm sure Rod's done it. He's probably done most sexual positions, to be fair.
Rainbow of Rod.
The rainbow Rod.
Already, there's so much that I can pick up for the social media videos. Thank you, Fran.
Speaking of creepiness, this first single was called "Good Morning Little Schoolgirl."
Oh.
But that was actually a Muddy Waters cover, so you can't blame him completely for the title. But in the 60s, that seemed to be the thing, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was cool to sing about schoolgirls
in a sexy way.
Yeah. Holy moly! So so we get down to the playlist.
Let's do it.
Overrated.
I'll do Maggie May, because to many people that's his biggest hit. And it's also the song that broke him in America, but I believe it was a #1 hit in the UK and the USA. It had a mandolin, and records say it's the highest selling song of a mandolin of all time. So take that, REM.
Great fact.
Yeah, like I said, this was when he was dancing between the Faces and solo. It was actually a B-side of an American DJ flipped over, which we've heard before a few times in the past, with Ice Ice Baby was a B-side. And then, well, there we go. And it's about him losing his virginity, which he did near me in Bewley in the New Forest.
Oh, I thought it was a jazz festival.
Yeah, in Bewley in the New Forest.
Oh, right, okay. For some reason, I thought Montreux or somewhere else.
No, Bewley. He was 16 to a much older lady, and apparently he only lasted a few seconds. We've all been there. That's jazz, guys.
Speak for yourself, Fran.
Sorry.
I was going to say the Rainbow of Rod did not work this time.
This song, it flows. As soon as it starts, you're into it. It's always been there for me. I think Blur did a good cover in the 90s. Check it out, guys. And at a festival when everyone's singing it and putting their arms around each other, it's quite a beautiful moment. Babs, what do you feel about Maggie May?
So I don't think I'd ever listen to this song all the way through because it starts with this kind of acoustic guitar and these. I've put medieval instruments. It reminds me a little bit of the beginning of Battle of Evermore by Led Zeppelin as well. But unfortunately, it doesn't stay that way. I've put that it's rock, keyboard, and insipid blues. You can't deny the "Oh Maggie, I couldn't have tried." That gets stuck in your head, and I don't mind the mandolin, but I think it's a little bit above average song, and yet facts. Rolling Stone ranked the song number 130 on its list of the 500 greatest songs of all time.
Dun, dun.
And the album it comes from, Every Picture Tells a Story, was ranked 172 by Rolling Stone again in the 2003 list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. So I'm like, what? Really? How?
It's a bit crazy how it was such a massive hit, really. But
again, I feel like this is the thing with a lot of the bands that we discussed. It's so big, but in America, I think, like more than in other places, and then it just kind of obviously dominates the pop culture landscape. Because I can believe it was big elsewhere as well, but because Americans do like this kind of rock, then yeah, it gets very popular.
And Paula, what's your thoughts on Maggie?
Yeah, it's one of those songs, isn't it? You literally, there's not that many songs that you can hear the first couple of notes of it and know immediately. The song is. I'm not trying to big Rod up in any way or form.
Big Rod.
But do you know what I mean? Like when you get songs that you can like this thing with Hurdle at the moment that you're hearing the first couple of notes of a song to identify it, and it's definitely up there with the greats that you'd know immediately from the
70s greats.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll move on to Gasoline Alley, which is off his first album, I believe, or second album in 1970. This was written by Ronnie and himself, so basically the Faces again. It's got more mandolin for you mandolin fans. It's got slide guitars, twiddling the lights around. It's got like this classic guitar solo, which all of his fans adore, and it's later covered by Elsie Brooks, who I believe worked with Robert Palmer, and Katie Melua. And yeah, there's like the hardcore Rod Stewart fans on the internet seem to adore this track, so I thought I'd pop it on. I thought it was a bit average, a bit middle of the road. It feels like it could have a bigger chorus or something, but it's pleasant, but I wouldn't exactly call it brilliant. Babs?
So we've discussed British men ripping off Black American blues musicians quite a few times, and nothing seems more like that than a song called Gasoline Alley. Because I mean, the lyrics even says, I realized maybe I was wrong to leave, better swallow up my silly country pride, running home down to Gasoline Alley where I started from. I don't think so, Rod. I think you were in Scotland there, mate. But having said that, I didn't mind this too much, despite, blues not really being my wheelhouse. I feel like the musicianship is strong. I like the mix of all the guitars. I like how it quietens down towards the end as well. Like there's a real kind of journey. I could have done without Rod's voice though. I think this would have worked well as an instrumental, despite him having a very distinctive voice. Obviously, the gravelly tones of Rod Stewart. But yeah, I enjoyed this more than I would have thought the moment I saw the title.
So you're a fan of the Wood, but not Stewart.
Absolutely. Pick up the Wood.
Paula, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the song at all, which is, I suppose the way with Rod, you know a lot more songs than you think you do. But that one, yeah, I've never heard it.
Well, his first two solo albums are flops.
Didn't do
basically.
Much, to be honest.
So yeah, it's only his third album, which Babs mentioned a minute ago, was his first success. Yeah, his first two albums did nothing at all really, especially in the UK. So like, I guess these are the Faces fans, or the only people kind of buying his early work. I guess it's when he moved on to Maggie May, and the next song I will talk about, which is You Wear It Well, is when he found the stride and I guess the classic Rod sound. But with You Wear It Well, it's basically for me Maggie May Part 2, but instead of a mandolin, they've got a violin. It's like the folky soul sound. But is this the first song that mentions negging? Because he says, you wear it well in an old, but with an old-fashioned sort of look, like, oh yeah, but for you, it's the right. Are you negging?
I'm sure it's not.
Negging.
I don't know if he's the first person to ever do negging in a rock song, but maybe. But it's fine. But like, it is basically like Maggie May, just rewritten, isn't it? Really. Babs, did you know the song?
I didn't know this song, so yeah, the only one I knew is Maggie May, and the big one that you've put towards the end. I thought this song was bang average, and that the violin doesn't add anything, and that the lyrics don't match the song. Actually, like when you go and look at it, you're like, oh, this is quite jaunty for what the lyrics are about, because it is quite tongue in cheek. And there's a fade out at the end, which is a little bit strange, and there's some kind of weird keyboard notes. And again, I think that would have made the song more interesting, but then it just fades out. So yeah, really, really strange one for me, I thought. Potential there, but wasted, in my opinion.
Paula, did you know this one? This is kind of a hit in the UK.
Yeah, no, it was a big song. I'm quite a fan of the violins, if I'm honest. But
I'm a big fan of violins.
Fair enough. I'm happy to be in the minority, as always.
A bit of violins, improves everything in my book.
So yes, so moving on to so I do the Rhythm of the Night next, which I guess is the latest one I have. Although he is technically Scottish, he lived in London all his life and has a very English accent. So I don't think he's ever actually lived in Scotland at all. I believe his dad is Scottish. But yeah, so this is the Rhythm of the Night, which has a Celtic feel. I believe it's a rewritten version of Loch Lomond, a Scottish folk song. But what I didn't notice is that it's produced by Trevor Horn, who a couple of years earlier had done Belfast Child, which is a very similar vibe of having an Irish folk song with an Irish melody rewritten. So like, hang on, Trevor, you're doing the same thing as before. Yeah, it does to me. I can just think of like Celtic people singing in a pub or spitting beer to this, and it's not really for me, but it seems to be an enormous fucking hit everywhere else. Did he feel this?
Well, see, I didn't even pick up on the Celtic thing. I wrote this. This sounds like a Bruce Springsteen parody with extra synths. I find it really strange that this is from 1991 because it feels like a pure 80s song. I'm like, Rod, were you a little bit late there in getting this involved? And the chorus is horrendous. And looking at the lyrics, it really reminded me, Fran, of kind of Bon Jovi kind of trying to be the working man, because he talks about photographs, kerosene. I can still feel the touch of your thin blue jeans running down the alley. Obsessed with that, is this man. I've got my eyes all over you, baby. Oh, baby. And this was my least favorite by him. I did not enjoy this at all. And didn't know it, actually.
Oh, okay.
I know you said it was a big hit, but new to me.
Paula, did you know the song?
Yeah, I know that song very, very well. It's one of them lighter songs, where for the chorus, everyone's there.
I can believe that.
Do you hear it in any Dublin pubs? Was I correct there? No. I
don't hear a lot of Rod in Dublin pubs, fortunately.
Oh, interesting. I thought, because sometimes the Scots and the Irish kind of, are hand in hand. Obviously, Rod Stewart's a big Celtic fan, isn't he? So I thought maybe there'd be a link there, but interesting.
No, it's mostly U2 and Ed Sheeran.
Oh, wow.
Ed Sheeran, wow, okay.
Do you like Ed? Are they not pissed off with his fake Irish stuff?
Well, the irony of it was he was discovered busking on Grafton Street in Dublin.
Oh, really?
Is where he was kind of first discovered.
Is that where the guy from Once was also busking?
Yes, same place. Not necessarily the same spot on the street, but
the only other note I had about Rod Stewart that I didn't mention and up the top is that his music career began in 1962 when he took up busking with the harmonica. So look how far he's come.
He went around Europe and he was like sleeping under like Parisian bridges. And he was almost going to be a professional footballer, and then he decided that music was for him. And he still talks about football constantly. I think he's got a full-size football pitch in the back garden.
So he's the elder Serge from Kasabian to go
another.
Yeah. I read a quote where he was like, "Well, with football you can't be drunk and hungover. With music you can, and that's why I chose music because you had to be less disciplined."
But I watched a documentary as per usual.
Of course he did.
And he referred to football as soccer, and I felt, come on, Rod, you're better than that. You're better.
No, but you have to. Again, this is what I'm saying. You move to North America. This is what happens. Like I was watching, because I'm obsessed with the Yellow Jackets. I watched a 45-minute cast interview with them yesterday, and one of the actresses is English, referred to it as soccer as well. And I'm like, yeah, you have to.
To the last track, and. Is this? I wonder. Is this still like his most popular song around the world? When you think of Rod, do you think of this?
Yes, for me, yes, yeah.
It's a wedding disco, and it's Do You Think I'm Sexy from 1978. It's Disco Rod. During the documentary, he said that his biggest mistake in his life was recording the song.
Really?
He said if you could, they asked me any regrets, and he goes, yeah, recording Do You Think I'm Sexy? And Ronnie Wood said that he would have never ever, if he was with him, he would have told him do not do the song.
Why?
And for a long time he didn't play it, but he now plays it because he knows the fans like it, because he wants to be a rock star, and he felt embarrassed by doing a disco track. But he says the reason why he recorded it was because the Stones did Miss You, which was kind of a bit disco-y, and he enjoyed it, but he felt he went too far down the disco route and added too many keyboards, and it wasn't him. Apparently, he almost got sued because that keyboard melody he stole from a Brazilian guy called Georges Ben. So yeah, he had to donate some money to UNICEF for taking it randomly.
That's a first. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's one of those sort of songs that you know the chorus, but I've probably not heard the whole song for a long time. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting middle section, the sax and the sort of drum breakdown. I've completely forgot about that. It's a track that I think people might ironically dance to.
I'm going to be more kind to this song. Yeah. So you put on the album version from the album Blondes Have More Fun. Can we just say, by the way, he has some great album titles. Never a Dull Moment. What is it? Every Picture Tells a Story. There's a bit of tongue in cheek there, which I appreciated. But this version is 5 minutes 32, and I was like, I swear to God, all I've listened to is the chorus, because like you, I was like, I've never heard this bridge before. I've never heard this instrumental breakdown with the horns. I hadn't realized that the verses were in a different key from the chorus. I think everything comes together. There's cheeky rhythm guitar, synths, bass, keyboards, and synth strings. I like it. It might be a bit naff, but I really enjoy it. And reading the lyrics, it's actually quite interesting, because I'm not going to go as far as to call Rod Stewart a feminist icon by any means, but actually the song is about, he's unsure about how the woman feels, and he wants her to tell him that she's sexy, because he's saying, like, he's acting shy, looking for an answer. Come on, honey, let's spend the night together, but hold on a minute before we go much further. His heart's beating like a drum. And I was like, oh, okay. I really thought this song was like, I'm sexy, baby. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a little bit more than that. So actually, this made me totally reappreciate the song. Yeah,
you do feel for Rod, because he keeps saying, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me. But I think that if the single cover is you lying across a bed with Do You Think I'm Sexy, it's not going to help your cause, to be fair.
So that's it. It's like out of context. Do you think I'm sexy? Sounds like, yeah, do you think I'm sexy? But in the context of the lyrics, it's like, do you think I'm sexy? Like, can we please get it on? Despite not having the right, breakfast material.
So maybe another artist should take it on and try and give it a different gist, maybe.
Have there been any covers, or did you research that?
I don't know if there's any decent ones. Paula, do you think I'm sexy? I'm so sorry I said that. I'm so sorry I said that. I'm so sorry I said that.
This is the problem. Demonstrating the problem.
To be fair, podcast listeners, I'm wearing a football top and no lingerie or anything.
That we can see. It's all a bit sleazy, isn't it? He seems a bit insecure,
Yeah.
He has to keep asking, do you think I'm sexy? Like, what? Why do you have to keep asking me? I mean,
Listen, Paula, consent is good. I'm like, this is a song from the 70s that's asking someone's opinion. I'm like, okay, that's different from a lot of songs we've discussed on here from that era.
Yeah, but it's just a bang of insecurity off it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If the guy has to keep saying to you, do you think I'm sexy? You're like, look, just deal with it.
Would you dance to this if it came on in the club or pub?
It's one of those songs, isn't it? If you're at a wedding, and the DJ's like, right, I need to get people up and dancing. Stick that on. All the dads are up doing their dad moves. All the grannies are dancing around their handbags.
Rod Stewart then? Thoughts? Babs, did he learn anything? I
definitely did. Like, well, I learned that there are more parts to his songs than I realized, because with both Maggie May and Do You Think I'm Sexy, which were the two songs that I knew from the playlist, I'm like, oh, this has whole sections that I didn't realize. And yeah, I've definitely tried to go into other Rod Stewart songs. I know Sailing, I know Handbags and Glad Rags, in part because of the Stereophonics cover, right? And I did think, I mentioned that A$AP Rocky song. That was a really good use of a sample there. So yeah, I guess I knew about his time in the Faces. I knew he had this kind of bluesy side. I'm now more intrigued after hearing Gasoline Alley, I have to say, but I think just seeing those Rolling Stone stats for Maggie May on like, best song, I'm like, what? No, like it's decent, but it's not that good. So I think based on this playlist, Overrated definitely. But I think that there must be more to dig into with Rod. I mean, I don't know how many studio albums he had, but he's been going for so long in I think all the decades apart from this one, maybe. So there must be a good 5 or 10 track playlist of Rod Stewart songs.
He's sold 120 million plus albums.
Wow.
Numerous number ones. For me, if you're gonna like divide his career up into like cool Rod and post, like even the cool Rod Stewart albums, I don't adore. Like I think I prefer the Faces maybe to his like apparently like decent solo albums.
So you've listened to whole Rod Stewart albums?
Yeah,
I definitely have not.
So I've before and previously, and I've tried to check out Rod Stewart when I know it's going to see him live. I thought maybe there's more to him than just the big singles of the 80s, and he's got some moments. I quite like Young Turks even is a banger, but his apparently cool era is not for me. I think it's other 60s acts who do it better.
But did you actually enjoy him live, or was he fine?
It was a parody because it's just him with loads of like gorgeous blonde backing singers and dancers and stuff. So that was fun, but it was, you knew that you're watching a weaker version of Rod Stewart. If it's Rod Stewart circa 1985, the high kicks and everything, it'd probably be brilliant. But 2017, it felt a bit weak, unfortunately. But that's not his fault. So he's in the 70s, so you can. So yeah, possibly a little bit overrated for me. Paula, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's like Credays are definitely over. Definitely. But the one thing I'd say is he's done a few good like hits, few bangers in his time, and he's done a few good ballads. But yeah, overrated for me.
What are your favorite songs by Rod Stewart then, Paula? Because it sounds like they're not on this playlist.
Like Sailing, I've got memories of being a kid, going on. I think we went on a boat over to the Isle of Wight or something, and they were playing Sailing on the tannoy. It was like really cheesy, but it's one of those things that if I hear that song, that I have that memory of. I must have only been about 4 or 5 years old, going over, being on this boat and hearing Sailing. So it's like with a lot of songs that are tied to memories. You hear a song and you're immediately transported back to a time
by boat.
Yeah, well, or ferry.
Apparently popular during the Falklands for the UK Army, Sailing. Apparently, this is a little fact. Did you know that Robert? Well, I assume Paula did. But Robert Palmer sang "Some Guys Have All the Luck" before Rod Stewart did, and then when Robert Palmer died, Rod Stewart would sing his version, and he'd get his backing dancers to dress up as the girls from Addicted to Love.
Shame on you, Rod. Shame on you.
But there you go. So it's like Rod is overrated, guys.
Hey, podcast lovers. Now available. A new podcast experience featuring exclusive miniseries like Food Faves, and all new series that takes a fun look at everyone's real first true love, food. Milky Way Marvels, a lighthearted astronomy series where we explore the fascinating wonders of our galaxy. Pop culture icons, an entertaining, nostalgic look back at various nouns in popular culture, plus more. Relax, enjoy, listen, laugh, and maybe even learn. Podcast, presented by Sonic Embassy. Now streaming everywhere you listen.
Access quick links to your favorite places to listen now at solo.to/Sonic Embassy.
Underrated.
Robert Palmer, Paula, your underrated choice. Can you tell us why you've chosen Robert Palmer?
Well, where to begin? Yeah, he's just like been my major love, I suppose, since I was about 15 years old. Yeah, just everything. He's so eclectic. He literally ticks so many boxes. I mean, I know we're kind of talking about the British blue-eyed soul, but he's literally covered every genre you can possibly think of, be it rock, pop, blues, reggae, jazz, easy listening, funk. He's literally done everything over the he did everything over the space of his career. And yeah, he's just got one of those voices, one of those. For me, listening to any music, the voice has to click. There has to be a connection. If I don't get that connection immediately, then it's kind of put to one side, and I'll move on to the next thing. I'll try and find something else. But Robert has been he's been a fixture, let's say, since I was in my teens. So
what was the song that you discovered him with?
It was a track called "She Makes My Day."
Oh, yep.
That was the track that kind of it clicked for me. And obviously he'd had all these big hits prior to that, "Addicted to Love," and all these "Simply Irresistible," and all these huge tracks. Didn't Mean to Turn You On. And I don't know. As I said, something I heard it, and something just clicked in my brain, and that was it. And kind of since then, I've literally I just collect. I'm a collector, and I collect everything from, it can be like weird Spanish 7-inch singles, it can be Australian picture discs. I'm a collector, so you do what you got to do when you collect a particular artist.
So with Rod Stewart, also we had different periods, and I guess Robert's biggest period would be the mid-80s. But is there a certain era which you liked the most for Robert, or like was his 80s stuff the best stuff, or was his early like soul tracks?
Well, that's a controversial question. In my opinion, his best era was the 70s. Kind of mid to late 70s was for me, his golden era. The 80s was kind of where he got most of his recognition, obviously, when the Riptide album came out and Addicted to Love was released. It just it took him to a new level. But before that, he was doing his own thing. He was with all these other different bands, and he kind of, he was trying to carve a niche for himself. And then when he went solo in 74, he kind of had the freedom to do his own thing. And yeah, I in my opinion, his stuff from the mid to late 70s is his best. Is his best work.
Babs, what did you know about Robert Palmer?
So I thought I only knew him as the Addicted to Love man, of course, with the iconic video. I'd forgotten about Doctor, Give Me the News, Bad Case of Loving You. But Fran, I had forgotten, of course, he was in Power Station, which is the whole reason this podcast exists, if you want to explain.
Back in lockdown 2020, when everyone wanted to have a podcast, were bored out of their minds, I decided I would try one. And I thought, I want to be unique. As a Duran Duran fan, a lot of people are unaware that they're one of the only bands in the world to have split up to make 2 solo projects and then reform afterwards. This is a bizarre thing I don't think anyone's ever done before. So we had a podcast where I asked people to listen to Arcadia and Power Station, and then we'd have a chat about both both side projects, and decide which is better, Arcadia or Power Station. And Babs was one of my early guests. And from that podcast, we realized, hey, we should work together. But my idea about Arcadia Power Station is so fucking niche, no one ever listened to it. So therefore, we created this podcast.
Wow.
That is the kind of thing we should release as Patreon. The early tapes.
The Arcadia Power Station war.
But Paula, I mean, are you a fan of Power Station, or do you think that's kind of by the by for Robert Palmer?
No. I mean, I'm very loyal to my bands I follow. Basically, if Robert sings on something, then I'm there. I'm listening to it. His stuff at the Power Station was incredible, and he's obviously got that rock presence. Again, another facet that he could go and do this stuff with the Power Station and get it on. Yeah, again, it was like a natural. It felt like a natural thing, and obviously he had that connection with the Duran boys as well.
Yeah, so because I'd forgotten that he was in Power Station, I texted my dad, because my mum, who's passed away, she was a huge Duran Duran fan, and I was like, oh yeah, by the way, Dad, today I'm recording Power Station, do you know them? And he was like, do I know them? My God, for 1 or 2 years I had nothing else. Don't forget that John Taylor was the leader or something. So I was like, okay, clearly. And my mum was obsessed with John Taylor. My dad sent, I can show you this many emojis, this many heart emojis to represent the love that my mum had for John Taylor. But was John Taylor even in it, or was it Andy Taylor?
Both. So it's
okay,
Andy,
both. Okay, good.
And in John, yeah.
Okay, so Paula, you're correct. So yeah, I feel once I found that out, I'm like, this man is a mystery man. I had no idea that he was British. I had no idea that he died back in 2003. In my mind, I was like, oh, he must still be around somewhere. When I saw Blue Eyed Soul, I was confused because obviously I only knew Addicted to Love. And I mean, Paula, you must have a lot of vinyl because he has 14 studio albums alone. And it's interesting because really, apart from Addicted to Love and Doctor Doctor or Bad Case of Loving You, I really didn't know anything, but yeah, you've mentioned some of the songs that I didn't mean to turn you on, Simply Irresistible to my knowledge. I've never heard them. And coming into this, I thought this guy definitely has a great voice. He has he's a hottie. Like he is a hottie. He's not my kind of guy. I will get into why like later on, but he's a handsome man of the time. So I'm not surprised that you as a teenager Paula fell for him. I think I probably would have. So yeah, so I was like, okay, this man clearly has more strings to his bow than I realized. I'd never knowingly gone into his back catalogue, so I was really keen to get stuck in. What about you, Fran?
I knew the 80s hits, Simply Irresistible, Addicted to Love, the UB40 cover, and then Power Station. I just thought of them to be a bit like a lesser known Brian Ferry. But yeah, I was completely unaware of his pre-Power Station years. And then when a pop band called Placebo brought out a covers album, they covered Johnny and Mary. And I was like, why the fuck have they done the Renault Clio advert? Because that's all I know it was. In the UK, that is the theme to the Renault Clio advert. And then I heard his original. I was like, oh fuck me, he has other songs before Addicted to Love. So I knew he had a new wave Robert Palmer, but I didn't know really about his soul 70s era. And on the playlist was the first time I've heard 3 of his songs. So yeah, explain your choices, Paula, on the playlist for us.
I'm trying to educate as well as I'm trying to educate people. That's the thing. It pains me so much that he's not more appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
It just breaks my heart that he's not as appreciated as your Brian Ferries and your Rod Stewarts and these guys that are playing stadiums now. And that if he was still with us, he'd be playing stadiums and stuff. So there's that little tinge of sadness, that he's not here anymore. But yeah, I suppose the tracks I chose were kind of span his first solo album and kind of go through to Riptide, purely because I was trying to look for tracks that I think are underrated and that deserve a bit more love than they get possibly. And as I said, it kills me that people are not more educated, that this guy lived among us.
Well, educate us, Paula. What's your first pick?
Okay, so my first pick is the title track from Robert's first solo release. So basically, he when he was a teenager, he was in all these other bands. He was in Vinegar Joe. He was with the Alan Bound for a little while, a group called Dada. So when he was with Vinegar Joe with Elkie Brooks, he decided to go and do his own thing, and Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley was released in 1974. I was still like a little twinkle in my mother's eye at the time, but as debut solo albums go, it's up there, and it's such a striking cover as well. Check it out if you haven't checked it out already. But the track I chose was the title track, Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley.
So Fran, did you know? No, you said you didn't know this song, did you?
No, not at all. So what I've also forgotten about was like in the 60s and 70s, you could just be a singer, couldn't you? Like these days, everyone has to be a songwriter. But back then, if you were a good singer, then people would write for you. And I guess a lot of songs by Rod Stewart and Robert Palmer are other people's songs, aren't they? Including this was written by Alan Toussaint. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I wonder before MTV if people knew if he was American or black, or because like this could be Sly and the Family Stone. It could be it's got James Brown vibes. So but I don't know if people were shocked when they first saw him. I read an interview with Steve Van Sant, the guitar player, saying that in 1969 his mate ran in and goes, "Rod Stewart's white." And I'm like, what? Yeah, but yeah, because people just didn't know. And if you had like I guess a gruff, rough, a voice, you could be like a black soul singer or blues singer. So be interesting to know what people's reactions when they first saw Robert Palmer. But yeah, is it about Dr. John sneaking Sally Kate behind the back of his wife Christina? Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's got kind of like a Rolling Stones feel. I guess it's got similar influences, but yeah, I think it was a good introduction. Babs?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I was like, oh, it's kind of funky and bluesy, and there's some synths. When the initial vocals and the violin came in, I was a little bit less impressed, but that I'm calling it the harmonica / guitar solo, because I couldn't really figure out what it was. I was like, this is very interesting. Again, almost Led Zeppelin like, and I needed a few listens. I still feel like I haven't got a handle on the song. I like it, but I feel like I'm going to like it more on repeated listens, and I need a bit more time with it. But yeah, this really surprised. I would have never associated Robert Palmer with this kind of sound at all.
Yeah, as I said, his stuff from the 70s is very, very different to what he's known for. As I said, Addicted to Love. If you people that would generally know him for that would be quite surprised, like yourselves, listening to his debut album, which was totally different.
Yeah,
to what he became known for.
It's like it's reminding me, and I think I'm going to mention them again later, but the fact that the Stranglers are known for Golden Brown, it's like that is only scratching the surface there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't know this was written by someone else, because I think the songs later on, I think it is him that writes it, and Johnny O'Mara, he is the sole songwriter. So yeah, a very interesting introduction to Robert Palmer.
What is interesting is that he didn't have much commercial success, did he, in the 70s? And it's interesting how record labels just were still back an artist. Like these days, that album had been dropped, wouldn't it? If you don't sell, if you're not in the top 100, it's game over. But he also seemed to have Island Records obviously backed him. So I think it's maybe 3 or 4 years later when he had his first kind of hit, wasn't it, really? But what's your next track?
So the next track I chose is called Which of Us is the Fool? And it's taken from his Pressure Drop album, which came out in 1975. Again, it's another facet to Robert. This is the one with the balm, ladies' balm on the cover that you're so fond of. There's Robert with a nice big 70s collar going on as well on the sleeve. So he was quite famed for working with Little Feat, the quite famous band Little Feat, and he worked quite a lot with them during the 70s. And the title track is the cover version of the Toots and the Maytals that a lot of people might know. The Pressure Drop song has been covered so many times, but Which of Us is the Fool? It's just one of those songs that I can listen to over and over and over again. And that's the beauty. I suppose that's the beauty of a lot of his tracks, that I don't know whether it's just because I love his stuff so much that I never tire of, sometimes you get a bit of fatigue listening to albums, and you listen to an album so much that you're kind of like, I need a break. I need a break from this album. But yeah, no, I've never found that. And I'm very much a stickler for albums, in that an album's track list is an album's track list. I hate all this shuffle business you get on Spotify, and even on the iPod and stuff, you get all this shuffle stuff. The tracks were put in that order for a reason. But an absolute classic of a tune, and he's quite prolific. Do you know what I mean? He was banging out albums in the 70s, like every one a year, one every couple of years, during the 70s. So yeah.
Do you know if he was doing like world tours, or was he not ready for that because he hadn't had many hits around the world yet?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose later in his career he was touring. Like, he always said that he didn't like having days off. Basically, his touring crew hated him, because he just wanted to all he wanted to do was perform live, and so he'd kind of rest when he thought they needed to rest. But if he had the choice, he would just go out and play live as often as possible.
I really like the song. I love the backing vocals, the rhythms, the strings. It sounds like late 60s soul, I guess. He wears his influences on the sleeve, like Sam and Dave. Kind of feel, this is not a side I was aware of. I kind of thought he would be more of the funk and the rock, but this is a more chilled, melodic, soulful Robert Palmer, and I really enjoyed it. Babs, what's your thoughts?
So it's been great that we've been getting along so well. I'm now going to diverge dramatically. This is exactly the kind of song I was dreading. I think it's a croony, middle of the road ballad. I really dislike this song. For me, the only redeeming feature was the bass line. So when you were saying, Paula, that you listened to it over and over again, I was like, I listened to this twice, and that was enough. Once the song and once with the very stylish music video. I have to say, the music video is very nice because it's him with a kind of unsatisfied woman in red, and then they go back to their house and he's on the TV and looking out the window wistfully. And I very much enjoyed the YouTube comment from I'm guessing a lady called Zaina Aidara going, his hair is pure magic, heart eyes emojis, which is very true. But I was like, oh no, this is exactly the kind of blue-eyed soul that I was dreading, and easily my least favorite on the playlist. I much preferred bluesier, 1974 Robert to this Robert. It just really grated this. I've put the strings, harmonies, panpipes really great on me.
Oh, you're not a fan of string? I love a string. Love a string.
I think, Paula, you were talking about violin. Like I played the violin for ages, so I know when a violin sounds bad because I played it very badly for a very long time. I like a violin when it's well placed. I think maybe, Fran, I am with violins like you are with horns. When it's well placed, I like it, but when it's not, it really irritates me. And unfortunately, on this song, which I said is my least favorite, so there's, hopefully from here on out. But yeah, no, I didn't enjoy this apart from the video and the bass line.
So, what's your next pick, Paula?
Oh my goodness. So next track was slightly better known. Looking for Clues. It came from the album Clues, which came out in 1980. It had a bit more of another facet to Robert's work. Slightly rockier, a bit more sort of new wave, some synths and stuff coming in. It peaked at 59 on the Billboard pop charts. I don't know, there was a lot of competition then. There were all these like new romantics and things, I don't know. And the track I chose was Looking for Clues from Clues. And yeah, I don't know if you've seen the video. The video is kind of cringy, but it's it's great. There's a bit of glockenspiel in there as well, and ticks a lot of boxes for me.
Well, people are saying that Big stole the piano sequence from this video.
Not surprised, yeah. Yeah, this is much more up my street. Thank you, Paula, for bringing it back. Great synths, great bass. I really like his much sultrier vocals. Like the man has a great voice. You mentioned it before, but his voice is sexy. It's versatile. He has range. His voice, 100% underrated. I think just on Addicted to Love alone, very underrated. And I love the random xylophone and watching the music video where he's literally dancing on it. Like I really enjoyed how 80s it was, where he's got his little vest and his like kind of Converse white high top style thing, and how literal it is, where it's like, I'm frightened by the sound of a telephone, and then there's a telephone. Things happen. And yeah, I thought, knowing that I really only knew Addicted to Love and maybe a few others, I was like, okay, this is a much more natural bedfellow to that. But it was released 5 years before, and the fact that it was released in 1980, I'm like, this is actually quite ahead of its time. But yeah, the video felt pure 80s, kind of Talking Heads-esque as well. And yeah, I was surprised to see those influences. So yeah, thank you, Paula. I saved this song to my library for sure.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I definitely heard Talking Heads feel. Also, it reminds me a bit of Paul McCartney. Apparently, this was too avant-garde for Americans to understand, so this was more of a hit in the UK. Apparently, it's the only track to stay at number 33 for 5 weeks in a row. That's as hard as I got to.
Love these facts. Love these facts.
That should be a record in itself.
Yeah, but so people are saying that it's about searching for a relationship, looking for clues. Does a girl like me? Is that the vibe of it? Babs, did you find out what his dad did for a living?
I did not. What's the link there?
His dad was a spy for the UK. This is why he lived around the world. Like he grew up in like Malta and places.
Oh,
this is
really
random.
Because yeah, he's from Yorkshire, which I'm like, again, like with Rod Stewart, I kind of forget that he's British, and from Yorkshire especially. I read that he lived in Malta and then went back to Yorkshire. So yeah, Paula, what does he sound like when he speaks? Is it kind of mid-Atlantic, or is there a bit of northern in him yet?
He's still got that. He still had that northern twang.
Good man. Good man.
It was, oh man.
Yeah, with that hair and that northern twang. Oh,
that Yorkshire.
I can see it. I can see it. I love some northern men, not all.
Yeah, you need to listen to some of the interviews he did, and it's just wow.
Paula, what's the next one?
Yeah, so I thought, I had to chuck this one in. It's Addicted to Love, from the Riptide album that came out in '85. And it kind of took him to a whole new level. The track, he dreamt it, the tune, and some of the lyrics he dreamt they came to him in a dream, and he always slept with a dictaphone beside the bed, and he woke up in the middle of the night with this tune in his head and kind of mumbled it into the dictaphone. And like, obviously you wake up and you don't remember, you might have had the most vivid dream, but you'll wake up and you don't remember anything about a dream. And so he had this sort of mumbled tune that became Addicted to Love, eventually. So they say good things come in dreams sometimes, but it's just one of those songs that it took him to another level. Like the video, I think it's probably one of the most parodied videos of all time. So many people have parodied it. People dress up for fancy dress, as Robert and the girls, but it was just, it was a bit of a departure for him, because before he would have been wearing t-shirts and jeans, and trousers and stuff, and then kind of he went into this suited look. It was just took him to this whole nother level. And MTV obviously was a baby around the time of when Addicted to Love was released, and it was one of the biggest MTV videos of all time.
What are your thoughts on the video in 2022?
My opinion of the video hasn't changed at all. It's not as if he's standing there leching, he's not leching at the girls, he's singing and they're dancing around in the back.
But I guess it's not. I guess it wasn't his idea. I guess it's the director. And then in Simply Irresistible, they kind of do the same thing again, don't they?
Yeah, it was directed by the same guy, Terence Donovan, and there's a bit of a theme running between the tracks that were released around that time. Obviously, like Didn't Mean to Turn You On is a very similar vibe. Simply Irresistible is a very similar vibe. But I can see a little bit why people think he could be seen as maybe a tiny bit sexist.
I'm mainly offended by how bad they are at miming. Like,
I know.
The person
Did
playing
you
the
read
drums, come on, at least try.
So I read somewhere that it was like a musician tried to teach them basic fingering techniques and gave up after an hour and a half.
The drumming is amazing. Surely that's the easiest thing to do.
But I like the vibe, like especially is it the bassist or the guitarist at the front? She's going for it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
The big question is, Paula, is that a lot of people said that he stole the Power Station sound for Riptide, and he says it was his sound. But I was listening to his albums previous, and I can't hear that sound before this album. So do you think that he did borrow the Power Station sound for this?
No.
No? So you're in the Palmer camp.
No, I'm in total. Well, I won't call it denial, but
Andy Taylor from Duran Duran plays guitar on this, and it's produced by Bernard Edwards, the Chic bassist and the Power Station producer. It's a great song. I think I always thought this was like the sexy cousin to Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. Because it's got a similar like rhythms and brass, and also having that big MTV music video. So I was for some reason sort of linked them together. I guess he's also wearing a suit, isn't he? Sledgehammer, the same sort of black and white suit thing. So
yeah.
That's where my mind went to. But yeah, Addicted to Love. It's a great 80s track, isn't it? It's undeniably a great pop song. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I agree. I think it might be overplayed, but that doesn't bother me. He's got this, I put almost growls. He's really going, like you really feel that he's feeling the song, and the range, like the highs and the lows are really good. I quite like the heavy guitars. Did not know it was Andy Taylor from Duran Duran until literally today. The heavy guitars matched with I've put brackets synth horns. Are they synth horns? Are they horns? I don't know. It works really well. And I really like how, at key points, it just pairs it down and it's just his voice or him harmonizing with himself. All the instruments get taken away. I've put, this might be controversial, I've put this is as good in excess, but not as good as their best. That's what it reminded me of. I think Need You Tonight or something like that is, from the same era is better, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. Paula, with a further playlist, and I was very interested to read number one that this was originally intended to be a duet with Chaka Khan. The song was made without her because the record company wouldn't grant her a release, but she's still credited. And that Noddy Holder from Slade said that this was the main track he wished he'd written himself. He said it's a perfect pop song. So yeah, but it was fun to rewatch the video because it's like you think you know it, but I'd forgotten how pure 80s yuppie he looks. Like he could have been in Wall Street. I'd forgotten that it was that simple. Like it literally is just him and 5 women in front of the screen. There's no variety in that. They're all kind of very squished together, I have to say. But yeah, I've got the whole list of who's parodied it. Weird Al Yankovic, Stardust, Mr. Blobby, Tone Loc, Shania Twain, Shakira, Paula Abdul, Dee Princeton, Luca Carboni. Like it is an iconic music video, and I think that adds to it. I think it definitely enhances it. But listening to the song just by itself and kind of analyzing it in that way, I think it's a great pop song. It's a great mix of instruments, and what a voice! What a voice!
Yeah, I suppose the only thing that really pains me is that it's the song he's best known for. If someone says to you Robert Palmer, you think, oh, Addicted to Love, and you don't think of all his other amazing stuff. I suppose it's the same with a lot of bands, a lot of artists. They're known for one particular. They could be known for one particular track, like Rod.
Yeah,
Rod asking if he's sexy. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, and it's quite interesting looking at the views on his videos, because with this song and the next one that you've picked, there's quite high views. But I think on the Looking for Clues music video, it was only like 350,000 or something. I'm like, that is quite a drop off from the others. So yeah, I totally understand that. If you're a fan of an artist or a band and they're only known for one or two that is not totally representative of their sound, it's frustrating.
I think it'd be interesting talking to an American, because in the UK, even Power Station's never played. Like, if I wasn't a Duran Duran fan, I would have no idea Power Station ever existed. You never hear Something Like a Heart on the radio in the UK. I think that was a massive hit in America, so I think that's what boosted them. But I didn't know anything.
I had not heard of Power Station, Fran, until you contacted me on Facebook and asked me to talk about them.
Yeah, it's
or
weird,
Arcadia.
But in America, Power Station was a massive hit, and that's basic. And some of the Bond reckons that that basically saved his career. So, what's your final track, Paula?
Yeah, the final track I chose was another kind of vaguely well-known track, again taken from the Clues album, called Johnny and Mary. A lot of people obviously know this, as you say, from the Renault Clio ad, know the tune from it, and it's been covered by a few people. Brian Ferry did a cover a couple of years ago, but I'm such a purist. I can't listen to any, like, my favorite bands. If people do covers, I just can't. I just can't. I hate covers of songs. Even it could be my favorite song, but I won't listen to a song by one of my favorite artists covered by somebody else. I mean, even Rod's version of Some Guys, I'm like, no, I can't. I can't do it.
What if Divine Comedy covered a Robert Palmer song?
I couldn't.
No,
I couldn't. we might go into the Divine Comedy, my Divine Comedy fixation. But Johnny and Mary, again, the video was huge, quite an iconic video. Him as a writer, a typewriter, and some weird guy and woman dancing in the background.
It looks like he's some kind of private detective, and they're doing some interpretive dancing. It's very strange.
A lot of weird videos from around that era. But it's just one of those songs, again, that I can listen to. And that beginning little keyboard, again, it's one of those tracks that you hear the first couple of notes and you know immediately that it's Johnny and Mary. Well, maybe that's just me as a fan. But yeah, I like to think that people would recognise the song. And obviously the people have grown up hearing the Renault Clio and seeing the Renault Clio ad in all its different shapes and forms. And we had Vic and Bob. I don't know if you remember the Vic and Bob, Nicole and Papa ads from back in the day. So that kind of tied together my two loves in the 90s. Vic and Bob have been a huge influence on me, comedy wise. They kind of, I don't know, they're like a bit of a cornerstone for for a lot of the comedians that I would have a connection to Vic and Bob. You can kind of tie back tie back connections to them, and people have them as influences. And yeah, so it was nice, people getting to know Robert's music, maybe in a very, very loose way through this tune. I mean, kind of, it's a bit how I discovered the Divine Comedy was through Father Ted, hearing the theme tune to Father Ted, and then going, I really like this tune. Who is it? And then you go down this rabbit hole and you look, and you're trying to find out, who's this guy? And it, that's how it happened with the Divine Comedy thing, that it took me down this 30-year rabbit hole.
In a time where people have discovered Kate Bush and Metallica through Stranger Things, who gives a fuck how you discover a band, right?
Exactly.
If you discover it, like I discovered Sonic Youth by Shazamming a Gilmore Girls episode. That's not. I think maybe how they would prefer it, but yeah. But I mean, Fran, I presume you knew this song before.
Yeah. So the first time I heard it was Placebo.
Same.
But then looking at Wikipedia, this wasn't even really a hit in the UK. I think it was number one in Spain, but everywhere else it wasn't really a hit at all. So that's why I knew it from the advert. But sadly, because I've heard Placebo first, to me, this sounds like the cover of Placebo in a weird way. Wow. I know it's strange, but so he says it's about political behaviour of the Bahama government.
What?
But, yeah, exactly. Everyone else is like, surely this is a relationship, an unhappy relationship.
A restless couple is what I wrote down.
Yeah, but he reckons it's... There you go. So is he lying? Is it about a political government? Who knows? But I like it, but I think because his vocal is the same melody as the keyboard, it becomes a bit repetitive after a while. I think it'd be nice if it had different melodies in it, so it becomes a bit too of like a one note affair. So I like it, but I don't love it. But it's nice to hear. As a big fan of like the new romantic and new wave scene, I should maybe listen to this album more, because I like Chris Francis from Talking Head, and I like Gary Newman. So this may be a period that I go back and check out. Would you say this is one of his best albums? Looking for clues?
I'd say so. I mean, I suppose if I had to double fun, I mean, this, as you say, it's really so many albums. It was so hard for me to whittle down to 5 songs. It's like, even choosing, if someone said to you, choose your favorite song from an album, sometimes even that is so hard. You could at least pick. It'd be easier to say which song on the album that you don't like.
I knew this from the Placebo song, and I was like, oh, is this a Robert Palmer original? I would have guessed Serge Gainsbourg in English, but I was like, is that maybe because they did the Ballad of Melody Nelson on the same album, and that's why. And yeah, Paula, this is a song where I was like, oh, it kind of sounds a bit like the Stranglers because there's this keyboard in the mix. I think it's Robert Palmer at his sexiest voice, definitely. But like you, Fran, I think the main vocal line is quite annoying, and I think it's in part because it matches the keyboard. The na 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 na. It doesn't. I mean, it's about a restless couple or the Bahamian political situation. Who knows? So if it's about tension, then you definitely feel the tension. But it's that vocal line really lets it down for me. I have to say, I would prefer something a bit different vocal wise, but thankfully he's sexy enough to get away with it. And yeah, I think like with Looking for Clues, what a literal music video, because it's literally like Johnny is running around and Johnny is running around, Mary is counting the horse, she is counting, and I'm like, I love, because that's how my brain works. So I'm like, oh, it's as if I would be like the creator for this. And yeah, I think because Robert Palmer is so kind of handsome and he's there looking for the perfect detective with all this board up paper, talking into this kind of old-fashioned microphone, and then this kind of mime artist guy, it's quite a contrast, and I enjoyed it, but I'm kind of not surprised that it wasn't as big as it was, because it is weird. Like it is quite weird. But yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, this was one where it seems like he is the main songwriter on it. No one else kind of co-writing with him, and yeah, I enjoyed learning that fact. But yeah, I have to say this is one of my lesser favorites on the. I much prefer Looking for Clues than this.
So we asked the question.
Let's ask the question. Overrated or underrated, Fran?
As a UK citizen, I would say that he's underrated because he is more than one song. And even like the big hits we mentioned in the 80s, like you don't hear those really played anymore, do you, Paula? Yeah. So growing up in the in the late 80s, you would hear his other hits, and they've completely vanished from like the media for some bizarre reason that I don't know why. So I think it's sad that he doesn't get played more than he is, and people don't seem to be mentioning him or covering the songs. He kind of is like a forgotten artist, so I think he's due to have a renewal.
Do both of you think that might be due in part to his untimely death? So he died aged only 54 in 2003 of a heart attack. Like you said, Paula, like he would probably be doing some reunion shows. That was a long time. That was almost 20 years ago. I honestly, I had no idea even. So yeah, do you think that's part of the reason why he isn't better known?
Yeah, I'd say that's the key reason, probably. But I'm not going to go down the Bowie route of, that I see on the anniversary of Bowie, that he's so revered and he's so, oh my god, Bowie, all this kind of stuff. But then Robert is kind of like, whatever. I just get really sad.
I think people are quite dismissive of acts that they think are one-hit wonders, right? And like I said, if someone had asked me Robert Palmer, I was like, oh yeah, Addicted to, and I'm like, no, I definitely do know other songs by him, but didn't realize it was him. I guess because in the 80s he did sound like similar acts in the 80s, as we mentioned. Like for me, I did get a lot of In Excess from him, and obviously the Duran Duran and the Power Station influence. I think this playlist definitely threw up surprises. For me, Sneaking Sally Through the Alley and Looking for Clues were huge surprises. I would have never guessed that he had, something so bluesy and something so avant-garde. But from this playlist alone, I wouldn't say he's underrated, just because I really didn't like Which of Us is the Fool, and I really didn't like, I didn't like Johnny and Mary. However, Paula, I think there is a 5-track playlist for me out there that I would like. I think with 14 solo albums with such a diverse sound, I can believe that there is a perfect 5-track Robert Palmer playlist out there for me. Even if today I'm saying I don't think he's underrated. I think definitely he deserves to be better known for more than Addicted to Love, but I haven't got the vibe yet that he should be underrated. I actually haven't looked up Spotify stats for either of these artists, which is something that I normally do. So what are we guessing? How many monthly listeners do Robert Palmer and Rod Stewart have?
Well, I saw how many plays Addicted to Love has had, but I
over 123 million. which is a lot. Oh god, hang on, I've gone off Spotify Premium, so now it might not show me. Oh no, here we go. So Robert Palmer has over 3.7 million monthly listeners. Yeah, I'm not gonna say he's underrated based on that. But Rod Stewart, let's go and check it out. I'm sure that he has more. 10.3 million monthly listeners. Wow, that is
overrated.
Definitely impressive. Wow.
I'm surprised about how many people have listened to things like Johnny and Mary and Sneaking Sally. Like we've got 47 million plays for Johnny and Mary, and for a song we never ever hear like on the radio or anything. That's quite.
And
that's quite
the
good.
video has like something like 6.7 million views as well. But I wonder how much of that was placebo and then the Brian Ferry cover.
And people in Spain, since it's number one in Spain.
People in Spain.
I've never heard the placebo cover. But that is probably because, as I said, I avoid covers.
So, Paula, tell us more about your podcast and your other passions.
Okay, where to begin? The podcast is called the Divine Comedians Podcast. The name basically came from my other music love, the Divine Comedy, and I borrowed the name of the band for my podcast. It was I was doing a degree, journalism degree, and I had to make a podcast. But it was something I'd always wanted to do, but always felt that it was too time consuming, and and there were all these different things that kind of put a stop to it. And then I had to do it basically for the degree, and loved it. And it's a labor of love is what I will call it. It's basically me chatting with my comedy heroes. I've had the likes of Charlie Higson on. Who else have I had? I've had a lot of them, Irish comedians, Ardal O'Hanlon, guys from the Fast Show, Simon Day, Roland Riveron, guys that I would have grown up, absolutely loving their TV stuff. And it's like a weird, pinch me kind of thing, when they agree to, like, getting Charlie Higson was a total fluke.
I'm a huge Fast Show fan. That's amazing.
Oh, man. Yeah. No, just like Vic and Bob, like Bob would be my ultimate guest. So if anyone listening knows Bob Mortimer and can get him from the podcast, Bob, Vic and Bob are my, I talk to a lot of comedians, and a lot of them, like the older ones, would talk about the Goons and the Pythons as their, their influences and things. But people, I suppose, of my generation, Vic and Bob would be a middle cog for a lot of people that I talk to, that they would have influenced them. They were doing, at the time, I know that they were kind of, people have said that they were kind of doing stuff like the Goons were doing back in the day. But, the whole surrealism aspect of it. And it was, as a kid, it was like you'd be watching it on TV and your parents would come in going, what is this? What are you even watching? What is this? There's a guy being hit over the head with a fake frying pan, or someone falling over, or a guy with a stick, wearing a big paper thing on his head. And it's like, it was kind of like they were talking to I don't know, it probably sounds really, really, really weird, but it was like they were talking to like our generation. Do you know what I mean? The parents didn't get it. And that was the nice aspect of it.
But where can we find you online, Paula?
All over the place. On Mixcloud, Acast, Spotify, newly on Apple Podcasts now. So yeah, I'm trying to spread the net.
And are you on the Twitters?
I am on the Twitters. If you look me up, it's just Divine. I think it's just Divine Comedian Podcast.
Are you on there personally as well, or just as the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I work in radio as well. So I have a radio show I do every Sunday evening. So it's quite nice because I can play whatever I like. So I play a lot of, every week there's a Divine Comedy track and a Robert Palmer track. Again, I need to educate people as to these amazing bands. And I try and find the most kind of bizarre, B-sides and weird EP tracks that I can find that people wouldn't necessarily have heard. If you want to check out my radio stuff, I put all the shows up every week. My tag name on Mixcloud is Hannoncom, unsurprisingly, that Divine Comedy connection, HANNONCOM. And so there's interviews that I've done with people. The interview with Neil is on there. Various stuff. I do a few like red carpets, and I'm kind of involved with a lot of film reviewing and a lot of pies, basically.
Thank you for being on the podcast, Paula.
No worries. Thanks for asking me.
Any final thoughts?
Thank you for educating us on Robert Palmer. It was going to be my final thoughts. I definitely keen to have a more open mind and listen more. And my final thoughts, Fran. May your tech be blessed and not cursed like mine. May your computers not be too warm. May your motherboards be intact. Those are my final thoughts.
Oh yes. Until next time, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello again. It is I, Fran. So you have completed another podcast, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please subscribe, follow, share. We are also on social media, so if you want to chat about anything we've discussed or any other topics, you can let us know on Twitter, which is OU Music Pod, Instagram, where we're Overrated Music Pod, or if you're old school, give us an email at overunderatedmusicpod@gmail.com. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Until then, see you next time.